Dynamite download.
AEW 2020, John Silver.
Special event, as you can see, SPD.
For a splashing good time. January recruitment.
I come along, I come along in the ring.
I would not want to hear that. I would not. We got great this year at SPD. Boy, weird. Welcome to Friday Night Flights and Fights. Cheers to the weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I love hearing that intro is a lot of fun, man. Just some of the great stuff that we accomplished. It's a nice, fun, upbeat. Cheers, everyone. Thank you, Pen, Brian. Welcome.
Thank you.
On choice. Crayfish is rocking, his Eddie Kingston.
Yup, live for this, die for this. I love this. I love this shirt. Don't really rock the old the tank tops very often, but it's shockingly hot here in the mid.
What is the temp?
91 degrees today it hit.
Well, I'll top you with that.
Scorching hot 91.
It was the other day. I'm in Arizona. It's 119 when I got in my vehicle. It said 119. So
always a one upper, SPD.
That was like a 5 upper, bro.
I gotta
trade
tell you,
any day.
talking about 5 upper, bro. I got a Mas Agave Classica here by Founders.
Wow, never even heard of that.
This is a prickly pear flavor, and they age this in tequila barrels. So
Wow.
I'll be smucking, and about an hour in, your boy Crayfish might be getting a little loose tonight, brother. I like it. Long week.
You got Mitch behind you.
Mitch is here.
Right.
Mitch is here, and he's
going to get better.
Mitch, cheers to the weekend, brother. He's taking a little sip himself.
Cheers to that for sure, man.
Yes, sir.
So, what percent is that?
My wife was bragging about it. It's 9.7%.
Jeez.
She knows I like
it. Still doesn't that double-digit hop slam.
Well, she knows if it's below 7%, I don't even mess with that anymore. I'm a grown man. I don't mess with it.
Here we go. I got I'm in Arizona, Phoenix area, and so I had to do a local from Costco, Santan Moon Juice Galactic IPA.
You've always been an IPA guy.
This is a Chris Statlander special right there.
The old Chris Statlander special.
7.3% right there. So this is what it says. Out of this world IPA crafted with tons of Galaxy and Nelson Savian hops that transcends all earthy pleasures, emitting an aroma of peach, apricot, and tropical fruit.
You had me at
Ready
peach.
for it?
You had me at peach. Smuck it. Oh, all right. I like it, brother.
That is great. We got a lot on store for our show tonight. Bonds might be fashionably late. He might unfortunately not make it. Got a little headache going. So hopefully we'll see him. If not, SPD Crayfish are going to be holding it down for sure.
What we do. You know what we do.
We had some great feedback in our on our tweet and stuff that some good topics to touch on. Some great topics. Before we dive into any of those, on the eve, we're almost a week away from a jam-packed week at AEW television of the announcement of them going to TBS and another show. One of our fellow friends and followers on Twitter, BMAC, he kind of gave us inside scoop, and he told us like a couple weeks back, that Rampage was going to be the name of the second or third hour of AEW. Blah, blah, blah. And so, man, he's got the scoop,
the inside scoop.
As Paul White said, he's got the scoops, man. So props to him with those inside scoops. But so, what do you think? I mean, we've kind of discussed it. We'll talk about this, like this Rampage show. How do you see it kind of playing out? And, like, do you think it's just going to be like an extension, or do you think it's kind of going to be kind of its own sub brand and feature like, it's hard to build stuff in an hour, but of course AEW fits so much in. Do you think it's going to be an extension, or do you almost feel like it's going to be like a separation?
I get what you're saying. You're thinking like, are they're gonna continue storylines in there, or is it gonna kind of be treated in its own entity? TK talked about it on Busted Open. And he said point blank, like, this is going to be treated as an equal. It's just going to be viewed as an equal show to Dynamite, right? Like, this is going to be every bit as important to the AEW landscape as Dynamite. And maybe that's a little sale job by him. He's a good salesman. He's got it in his blood. But I do think that there's, you and I have talked about this, man, fresh off the heels every night when we do Dynamite Download, man, it is just insane. We can't cover everything because it's like
so hard. Yeah.
Our show would be longer than the show itself. We don't have the ability to edit and all those things like they do. They cram so much in a 2-hour like period in Dynamite. You and I, and if you're reading Bonds' column, he's the same way. AEW will really benefit from allowing to have a little bit more time to breathe, right? Like Dark and Elevation, they are nice. Those are nice shows but they're more of a niche audience for those fans that really want to see up and coming talent. And sometimes, like you talked about, SPD, some of those squash matches, things like that. But when it's on cable television, it's a different level, right? It's treated as a different entity than it is when it's on YouTube, right? Like, we're on YouTube. So, I mean, like, we're like anybody could be on YouTube. So it just treats it in a different way. I think it has a different level of mystique and aura to it. I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of allow some of these segments that they sort of almost jam pack into Dynamite to breathe a little bit. Maybe have like we talked about this last week, the Jade segment. That was an example of a segment that could be on a show like Rampage, right? Like allow character building moments, allow some of those things to happen without jam packing everything in there. Like even going back a couple weeks where Kingston and Mox, where the Bucks retired SCU. That was that could have been like a moment where they could have allowed those guys to have their moment. And had the Bucks kind of and Kingston, that trashing in the locker room and all that stuff happen on another show. I think that there's going to be what I'm seeing, and I'll let you get it, jump in here too, dude. But like, I'm seeing AEW emphasize trying to get more of their stars on the other shows. I mean, I've noticed as a DMD fan, she's been on like Dark and Elevation. You see like guys like Brian Cage. You see some of these guys. The top talent is on other brands. I think that just the missing component is making those matches feel special by having them be competitive, right? So if they have it, I think that there's enough depth in this roster. There's enough talent in this roster to allow it. I mean, you think about, like, you and I talked about this, SPD, like, think about how deep this tag division is. And you don't get a chance to see Butcher and the Blade. We haven't seen Santana Ortiz get tag matches where, I mean, like, there's so much talent that there's plenty of room to allow some of these stories to breathe. HFO, we're gonna get more into the trios talk later on tonight. But that's another example, right? You could have some of these groups get some matches. I would love to see like Evil Uno and Stu Grayson in the ring again, man. I'd love to see some of these guys get opportunities. I think that there's a lot of depth to AEW that they could absolutely support another hour of television, no doubt about it.
For sure. And you know what's I guess, AEW Brass has been watching a lot of Dynamite Download and Friday Night Flights and Fights because they see that that's a golden hour. Friday Night Flights airs 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now the Rampage is going to air at 10 p.m. So we're going to have to make some adjustments going forward because we got trying to take it from us. They see the Dynamite. They see fans Friday Night. That's right. Friday Night Flights is making an impact on AEW's decision making. So they are going to have that fun. It'll be cool. I mean, we'll figure it out once August hits and what they're going to be when they transition into Rampage. But, just brainstorm. We could do like a pre-show or like even like a live watch along or something would be kind of cool. We got that 10 p.m. hour locked down, baby. Dynamite download style locked down.
Yeah, man.
So,
that's right.
But
it gives us even more. It gives us then more content, right? I mean, we can talk.
Sure.
We can kind of pivot off of Friday Night Fights and Flights.
The Rampage rundown.
The amazing fans. That's right, baby. All those amazing fans that join us, like they can talk. They can jump in, and we could talk a little bit about that show. Yeah. And then we could also kind of have a free flowing enter into the weekend like we do now. It could be a nice blend, a nice mix. AEW, man, I was just watching some of SmackDown before the show. And even SmackDown, what I think is WWE's best week-to-week product, even SmackDown just does not do it for me quite like AEW does, man. AEW is just consistently fantastic every week, man. It's just absolutely on point.
Yeah, and hopefully it's a live show, or even if it is taped, I think the production level will be much better than an Elevation or a Dark, and I think it's going to have to be main event stuff for it to get really agree to a TV deal and all that. So Khan probably has to promise this is an extension of Dynamite, but you're going to see some pushing of the envelope. At 10 p.m. on a Friday night, you're not getting the kids around the TV, and it's not all Orange Cassidy and booping all around. So you're going to have
that would be
probably
great. That'd be more. Yeah, I mean,
for sure. I love that, but you're probably going to get some more, street fights, some more. I think Eddie Kingston. I think Brian Cage. I think, that's right. That kind of talent on that. So, but anyway, so I'm excited for it.
Now that AEW is talking, officially announcing that they're talking about adding a trios belt. I mean, you start to see like, okay, man, like you can see like, all right, like trios title. That in and of itself, that division with the amount of groups and stables that are in AEW, there's just so much there that now you're adding another belt to the mix. You and I have talked about it a lot. Like for a while, it felt like the TNT title was on the back burner. Then Darby he acknowledged that and he went after it, but. You look at the AEW landscape. Sheeta has only been on only defended her belt, only been on TV about 3-4 times this year. Yeah. With Brit, which hey, if Sharonica was in the chat, I know she'd be pounding the table just like me. If when Brit wins the title, so the women's title, the women's division is going to be represented more frequently. The tag division, the Bucks are week in week out. They're having killer matches. Kenny has kind of done what a world champion should do. He's making his matches count. But if the women's title starts to come back into the forefront and starts to get defended more often, and then the trios belt emerges as something that we see weekly, they're going to need this. They're going to have plenty of storylines and plenty of content to fill that extra hour. There's no doubt about it.
And that'd be a perfect way to draw some interest. Is everyone loves a tournament. It talks about it. So if you did a trios tournament or debut the trios belt on Rampage, that is a perfect thing to do. And speaking of that, we will.
That would draw some major eyes to Rampage. That's a good call by you.
Yeah,
SBD.
Trios tournament, trios belt debut. You can have the tournament on there as well, or you could just have even just the finals on the show debut too. But that being said, love the question. We've talked a few months back. We talked trios versus cruiserweight. We were all on board for trios belts. And Lori, thank you for sending that question in for us. But if you, for a 4-team bracket, if you could book a mini trios tournament, 4 teams, who versus who, and then advancing, and then finals, and who would you win? So pick your 3 rounds. What would you want to see? And who do you see coming off? You can tell me your first round. We can go back and forth if you want. But.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great topic because I know as soon as
tell us in the chat too. Who would you want?
Yeah, I want to hear. I mean, please help us through this, guys. So, I will say this: when this was announced, there's been a lot of people jumping in and talking about who's going to win the trios belt and who should win and what should happen, because there's a lot of groups in AEW and there's a lot of natural fits. One of the ones that jumped out at me that I didn't think about at first, but really would be a fascinating one, would be if Adam Hangman Page, along with John Silver and Alex Reynolds, if that crew got an opportunity. I think that, Hangman Page is very over, and it would be an opportunity for him to kind of reemerge get a big pop. And you and I have talked about it. We've interviewed Reynolds. We've interviewed Silver. We love their in-ring work. We think these guys are absolutely fluid and crisp and on point. I think that'd be a very interesting kind of dark horse candidate. But dude, you know where I'm at, dude. For me, it's not really even a competition. I want to see the Death Triangle become the Golden Triangle. That is my dream, and that would be absolutely perfect scenario for your boy Crayfish. I'm right there with our boy B-Mac, who B-Mac.
Yeah, we were just talking about you.
We were just talking about you, how you broke the news really about how Rampage was going to be the name of the show. That was well before it got announced officially. Right. So B-Mac was on point with that. I'm in lockstep with our boy B-Mac on this one, dude. Like the Death Triangle, Pac is my favorite wrestler on the planet. He made my Mount Rushmore. You throw Phoenix and Penta in that mix. Right. The type of matches those guys could have with that energy level that they bring, the intensity that they bring, they would be my number one seed in a trios tournament without question. Who would be your number one seed? Let's go in this order. Who would be your number one seed if we're going 4 teams in this bracket? Just a semifinal type of thing. Number one seed for me is the Golden Triangle, baby. Who would yours be?
Death Triangle would have to be number one seed. That's for that as well. It doesn't mean
the name.
I'm not going to reveal my winner, but number one seed, and I think you have a number 2 seed would be Best Friends. So those two I would like to see, fitting for this feud right now. Those two meet in the finals of the trios title.
I was arguing that because I feel like Best Friends would, you talking about debuting a new belt, debuting a new show. Best Friends definitely have that that babyface vibe. Can you especially with Orange Cassidy, I think that would be a natural transition for them. So I think those are the two teams that definitely come out as the favorites. Maybe the number 1 and the number 2 seed would be the Golden Triangle and the Best Friends. Who would be your third pick?
Jurassic Express. I think Jurassic Express. So those 3 teams would be in there. And I kind of got to ponder on the next one because you really need a nasty heel one in there. Mm-hmm. Who would you pick for 3?
Well, I've thought about it, right? And obviously with Ricky Starks' injury, that throws a big wrinkle in the mix because Team Taz is such a natural trio that would work really well. Although it does seem like they're trying to get Hook a little bit more involved physicality-wise. I don't know if he's quite ready for a mat like that kind of setting yet, that kind of push. I'm all in on this Pinnacle and Inner Circle feud, and you mentioning a nasty heel trio, I think that if you started throwing in Shawn Spears and FTR, I think that would be a really nice trios team, and especially with their in-ring work, their styles. True. I think their styles would complement each other really, really well. Spears kind of being, an underrated technician in the ring. Mm-hmm. FTR, I love their old school vibe. I would definitely be down to seeing them go at it, especially if they definitely have a chip on their shoulder the size of Mount Everest right now with getting bypassed by Kingston and Moxley for the tag titles. FTR could go out and pave history. Really, you and I've talked to you about this, bro. FTR is the only team in the world that has had the NXT championships, the Raw tag team championships, the SmackDown tag team championships, and the AEW tag team championships. So I think that would be a phenomenal way to go. And then I also think that if you're talking about heels, your boy Kenny, the belt collector, if you threw Kenny along,
true, another belt to collect.
He was just another belt to collect. If you threw him with the Bucks or the Good Brothers,
that's a good point.
I think that'd be some fun television to see Kenny get another title, right? I think that'd be cool, right?
I think that would be very fitting. I didn't even think about that. And of course, anyone from Inner Circle and anyone from Pinnacle. But I'm thinking on the landscape of this side development, not necessarily the big picture. Like obviously blank canvas. I'm thinking more realistic versus fantasy. In the landscape of what's going on right now, like Phoenix is hurt right now. Hopefully he'll be back. But not much is going on for Jurassic Express. Not much is going on for Best Friends, really. So this would make sense so you can have like more depth to the roster, even though they have an extremely deep roster. But it would be hilarious for them to win the trios and do that. Obviously, anyone from the Pinnacle, anyone from Inner Circle. But realistically, for the time being, if you have Death Triangle or Best Friends have those trios, you just expanded the depth of that so much more. And you're getting more FaceTime for people who don't frequently get to FaceTime as they should. So
you just
realistically, it would be.
What about Hardy? What about the Hardy family? I mean, like when you look at like right. Matt Hardy and Butcher and Blade. I know Butch is hurt, but what Matt Hardy and Private Party? I mean,
that would work too. I think you should. That would be like the 4th seed. So you have Death Triangle. Well, for me, Death Triangle, Best Friends, Jurassic Express, and HFO. That way, like these all people who are, haven't been in the heat of all heat right now are going to be in this mini tournament. I mean, the tag team division is so deep and the trios division is so deep and it's so fun. So you could build a huge tournament out of this. Chris mentions my pick and my last one. Oh yeah.
Chris mentions my last one, my 4th seed. So right now, I mean, my favorites would be the Golden Triangle. I like the Best Friends. I think that's a natural pick too. And then I personally think that like if you see, I personally think that the Factory, if you put QT Marshall, Anthony Ogogo, Nick Camarado, or even you threw Aaron Solo in there, you did some combination of the Factory. I think that would be a great group too. I'm all in on the Factory. So that's what's exciting about the trios division though, isn't it? Like there's so many groups that can go into it. And like you talked about, I think your pick with Jurassic Express, I wasn't even thinking about them, dude.
Right.
But your pick with Jurassic Express is a great
They've been gone for a while, but they're so fun in the ring.
And I heard some people talking, like Jungle Boy felt like he was like right on the cusp of breaking out as like a top tier guy, and he's kind of slipped a little bit. I mean, not his fault, but it feels like Jurassic Express doesn't really have anything going on right now. That's a really good pick by you, Jurassic Express kind of being an opportunity there. I don't know.
It would fit well too, and it would go, especially that they're touring. A hot baby face. When Brit does take the title, and you don't have to get that orange.
I'm not getting. Although it would probably look nice with these pasty arms, I might be thankful for that. And the build to this match with Brit has got me scared, man. Not to show any kinks in my armor, but I'm a little worried about what happened in this last show because I feel like the long-term wrestling fan in me wonders, like, okay, like whoever looks strong going into the pay-per-view usually comes up short. So I'm worried. I don't know. I'm a little worried.
Yeah. I can't wait for it, man. A lot of great stuff, a lot of depth to the roster. It's much needed. I mean, we get AEW wrestling 4 days a week.
That's wild, dude.
How many hours? It's going to be at least 6 to 7 hours of wrestling a week. And that is just mind blowing.
And I'm trying to keep up with Impact now too, because I feel like, I've been, anytime Kenny's on TV and Don Callis, Bonds and I talk about it all the time. Kenny and Don Callis are so freaking good together. They're so funny. And Impact, although it's not on the same level of AEW when it comes to like their production values and obviously their budget and things like that.
Right.
You can tell they're trying, man. They're really trying, and there's some cool stuff that's worthwhile watching that stuff. Josh Alexander is I love those old school wrestlers. Josh Alexander definitely I rock with. I definitely F with that dude. He's sweet.
Right.
And Moose emerging as the number one contender there against Kenny. That's some interesting stuff. So I don't know, man. It's a lot of wrestling to keep up with, man. I know my wife's kind of getting a little jealous. I'm so into wrestling right now. It's awesome as a fan, man. It's great.
It's on another level lately, and on a good way. And it is crazy. I haven't been able to keep up with Dark as much as I have been lately because of work. So I read about it, but it's a lot of content, man.
Yeah.
It is a lot of content for sure.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
Speaking of that, another question we got in the chat was what we could twist it as a two-parter. What legend would you want to sign in AEW, and or what free agent would you sign? Because the pool, as we just heard, if you haven't heard, Velveteen Dream, if you guys are fans of his, just got released from WWE NXT. Full of personality, full of charisma, some awesome potential, great matches he's had. And so if you could pick a talent to put on the roster and or that would to sign, and a legend that could wrestle / mentor, who would you pick? I mean,
it's not fair to ask me first. It's not fair to ask me first because in typical crayfish fashion, anybody who knows
depends.
It depends is always my answer. I'm the guy who gets crippled when I go walking down the cereal aisle because I can't pick the cereal. I go to an ice cream shop and I have to taste 7 samples before I can pick. I have such a hard time. My list, guys.
Commitment issues.
When we were talking about this, guys, out there in the chat, literally I have a list of probably 20 people deep that would be interesting. Now, Velveteen Dream, I put it in different categories. So I put Velveteen Dream as a guy who would be valid but very controversial. Everybody understands why that would be a controversial pick. His history is sketchy, but there's no denying the man's charisma. The guy can do it all. And before everything that came out, all the things that happened, he seemed like he was destined to be a top guy. Wrestling and the showmanship and everything came easy for him. So he falls into my valid but controversial list, along with someone who, as a women's wrestling fan, I feel like gets immediately when you mention her name, you get people who have fall on both sides. Tessa Blanchard is somebody who I think would be such an awesome fit in AEW, and I know that that's a hot take. But you see Tully, and what a great role he's playing in the Pinnacle right now. I feel like Tessa is, SPD. Tessa Blanchard was the Impact World Champion. She won as a female. She won the World Champion.
I didn't know that.
This woman is a powerhouse. And you talk about how much growth has happened in the AEW women's division. Adding a big name and a big presence like Tessa, who has the strength to legitimately challenge somebody like Jade, legitimately challenge somebody like Nyla, and not back down. That would be a game changer in the women's division. So she's on that controversial list. Also, I thought about Marty Scurll, another guy very controversial, but would be a legitimate pick that everybody could say, man, Marty Scurll with the Elite and his history with the Bullet Club, the Villain. Talk about showmanship. I also think, like Brian mentioned, your guy Ryback. That's another guy who would be controversial, but
controversial for sure. But
I think would be really great. There are a couple no-brainers that I think that I want to throw out there, and I want to see. SPD is your pick in my no-brainer list. So my no-brainer list, I have 5 names as no-brainers, guys and gals out there.
Is that the first ones you send? The obvious ones?
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe. CM Punk. Brock Lesnar, and Andrade. I feel like those are the 5 no-brainer, home run, absolute killer signings that if AEW could sign any of those 5, wrestling fans would go bonkers. Is your pick in that no-brainer obvious list that I mentioned? I know
obviously you can fantasy book it all day, but realistically, I would love to see Samoa Joe. I think Joe. Like I hope he's got a lot left in the tank. I've always loved him and his in-ring stuff and his he has a lot. What he can do with the guy looking like that and his angry attitude. I really enjoyed Samoa Joe. Now, in terms of like legends, that is a tough one. You know, I was still kind of pushing for Kurt Angle to be like the surprise one when they announced the scoop from Paul White, and so I think Kurt Angle would have been a lot of fun and a lot of fun. But you know, obviously, fantasy booking, it would be like Stone Cold as a legend.
Yeah, that's true.
So
we could go all day on this one. You know, I think that you make great points about Samoa Joe. He's like one of the OG independent wrestlers that he brings an intensity and a fire, and I know you love that. I know you love those promos that he can cut. Just a bad dude, man. I love Joe.
He's got some great promos.
Love Joe. I think Andrade could be a guy who could be a name that would fit in the AEW landscape. Would be a nice addition. Some of my not as huge but very interesting guys that I would be intrigued by. I love Lucha Underground. I thought Lucha Underground was very special. And now that we're starting to see like Marty the Moth is starting to get more and more opportunities in AEW, I think that the OG baddest dude from Lucha Underground, Mil Muertes, would be really cool to see him get an opportunity in AEW. That dude, I know SPD, you didn't check out Lucha Underground, so I could be talking in Spanish right now. You wouldn't know what I'm saying. But Mil Muertes, talk about an absolute monster, a bad dude. I loved his stuff. I thought that would be fantastic. Some other names that were under the radar names that I think would be great. WWE just released one of my favorite guys that I'm a Bo Lever for life. I think Bo Dallas would be a great addition. I think he's hilarious. I think that he would add some levity to AEW.
He's great heel and face, man.
Very creative.
I really enjoy. Yeah.
Any gimmick that they threw at Bo, he always found a way to get it over, and I think that would be a great fit for them.
True.
I also, as a tag team guy who loves tag teams, you and I know, dating back to when AOP was breaking into NXT, I was like, man, there is no way that WWE can mess up the Authors of Pain. There's no way. There's zero, these guys are 100% without a doubt absolutely going to get over and on the next level on the roster, and they somehow found a way. And obviously injuries, I think, played some role in that, but they freaking ruined the Authors of Pain. And I think the tag division could use a little shakeup right now. I think that the tag division could use a monumental signing like that could just change the landscape. I mean, really, who are the powerhouses in the tag division in AEW?
Well, there's no heavyweight ones. I mean, FTR is a powerhouse, their style, but in terms of it's a lot of flips and not fists, in that. So
Authors of Pain, their style,
Kingston and Mox are
so sick in AEW tag division.
So AOP, when they screwed them up in WWE, that was the final straw on the camel's back. For me, I was like, I'm done. I can't watch this shit anymore. I can't believe it.
You heard me preach the gospel of AOP. I was like, dude, AOP is the truth, man. Those guys are badasses.
Their only issue is I feel like they're almost too aggressive in the ring, which can lead into a little sloppiness. But I don't know how they are backstage and stuff. But yeah, very, like you said, Brian, they were injuring guys. So I think they were. I don't know if their style would fit because of how aggressive they are and how maybe not technical they are. But
AEW could use a little aggression in their tag division, though. I think
for sure. If Mox and Kingston get the belts, and then a team like that comes in and just starts wrecking them and takes the belts from them instantly, an awesome Impact, that'd be oh shoot, division's on notice again.
Exactly. I think that the Bucks run has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great.
But something that could be a real wake up call, and kind of get them out of it's just they're gloating, they're toying with their opponents. I don't know, a signing like that, those guys could coming in and just wrecking them. Yeah, that would be interesting to me. I agree. They did get a little they had some moments where they were so physical and aggressive that they hurt some folks, and they'd have to dial that back a little bit. That was a problem for them.
Genuinely scary guys.
Yeah, and I don't talk. I mean, I mentioned like all my guys. I mean, I'm talking. I mean, I also think Cody Hall would be a cool pick too, but because there's not a lot of guys with that kind of size on the AW roster. But I love this topic. I love pro wrestling in a greater scheme. This also just because coming off the cuff of watching Impact recently. Big Cass is being presented as a wrecking crew, like just a one-man.
I'm happy for him
in that company.
Well, cheers to water to him.
When you and I talked to Maddie Rinkowski, she talked about Enzo as one of her like biggest influences.
Mm-hmm.
Enzo and Cass would be interesting in AEW.
I was always a fan of them for sure. I think their dynamic was awesome, and I was always a fan of Enzo. And whatever happened. Everyone's got two sides to every story, but I think like he was starting to peak, and he was starting to do a little bit better stuff in the ring.
His cruiserweight stuff was cool, man.
It was. He no joke. He put that division on notice. I know Pac was the champ, but the true eyes came when Enzo started getting that belt. So that being said, you have to pick two people right now. That's a very complex list. It is nice, but you're Tony Khan and you get to pick any of these two.
But budget with TK's money, man. I don't know. I'd be like, Brock Lesnar and CM Punk, or Brock Lesnar and Daniel Bryan would be my top two picks. But
all right,
I feel like those are dreams.
Realistic booking that you could actually see. I mean, never say never with anyone with TK and AEW, but
I agree.
In the landscape and the way you just have seen the trends of signings and things like that, who are two that you could see realistically happening?
I think I'll pick one from the women's. I think that Tessa Blanchard would be. I mean, yeah. I think that would be a great signing. I think it would be fantastic. And she deserves to be on television week after week, man. I think she'd be fantastic for the company. I know that working in the same company as her dad too. I think that she would get and her relationship with Brian Cage. I think that there's just people in that locker room that would keep her in check. And her talent is too good to pass up. And then my other would be a realistic one. I think Andrade would be a perfect fit in the landscape of AEW. I think that it would add another, another guy who could work a lot of different styles, a guy who has that lucha libre background, but can also be realistically going against a guy like Kenny Omega, who we're going to see that match happen. I just think that would be a really nice combination, personally. Yeah.
Those are some good stuff. I was never into Andrade in WWE that much. I don't know. I couldn't get into his gimmick. And we still, what does she go by? His old manager. What is her?
Zelina
Trinidad.
Well,
what's her new name? Trinidad.
Yeah,
she's still haven't heard about that.
She's going back to WWE from what we hear. That's what I'm hearing. Is she's going back to WWE. She's with Aleister Black in real life. And they're trying to repackage Aleister right now, and that's some interesting stuff. I mean, his I don't know. His stuff is definitely character heavy right now, and it would be intriguing. But from what I'm hearing, Zelina Vega is going back to WWE.
Wow. Okay. Well, at least she didn't get her stuff in a garbage bag or anything like that. So, like someone else did, Mickey James. But that being said, this can transition into like possibly actually happening. Being another question we got, the Casino Battle Royale, and there's a wild card. Is this full of that? Do you think it's going to be? I'm trying to think realistic booking. You talk about a wild card. This person's going to get a title shot, and so obviously they're going to be feuding with Kenny Omega or whomever wins if someone does win. Thank you, Brandon, for confirming that on that that she is going back to WWE.
Yep.
He's always got the scoop. Go to Brandon for the scoop right there.
B-Max got the scoop, man.
But this wild card, it could be a outside signing like when we saw Matt Sydal, or it could be another person who's just not on the card. But you got to think who in this match is going to challenge Kenny Omega for the championship. So just looking at this,
man,
obviously
That's a stack. That's gonna be
But
fun.
we talked about like Christian Cage would be fun, and like you said, it wouldn't hurt him, losing, and it'll be a great feud to feud with. Obviously, things are shaping up for kind of a Team Taz feud, but if he were to win, which we saw that kind of hint face to face when his debut, roughly with Kenny Omega and holding the belt and all those things like that. But a new addition, I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't think the card is so stacked it doesn't need a huge wow factor debut personally. But that being said, AEW never disappoints and they don't pull any punches. Like, it would be cool to me for like RVD or something to come in there,
RVD was on RVD was on my controversial list, but I think that would be interesting. Especially fresh off the heels of being introduced in the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't know. That would be intriguing. But the Joker, I agree with Pen on this one, that like the Joker has not been talked a lot about. And so it's like it almost feels like it could be used as a, what if it was DDP or something like, right. I mean, like, or Glacier. I know that those guys, the Elite, really love Glacier. It could be one of those like throw in kind of characters that doesn't really affect the landscape of the match per se.
Who's that in the bottom right? Next to Griff.
Is that one of the Good Brothers? Because it seems like it could be a Good Brother.
I can't see. I'm trying to get a crisp photo of this and just see who's in this. Is Kazarian in this?
Yeah, no? Let me pull up. Let me check and see.
Kazarian's not in this, but I can't see who this is. That's a bald person. It's obviously not Dax. Does anyone know who that is in the bottom right? Blade. Okay, thank you, Pen. It's Blade. Yeah, doesn't look like him. Well, that's nice. He's featured.
Who do you? I mean, like we were talking about this SPD. Like, Jungle Boy certainly feels like he needs to have a moment. Going through the competitors: Christian Cage, Matt Sydal, Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, man. Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's going to have Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Keane, Blade. I mean, the Hardy family is going to be they're going to be well represented, but so is the Dark Order. They're going to have Evil Uno, 10,
and so is the Factory.
I mean, there's a lot of talent in this battle royal.
QT Marshall and
QT Marshall. I would love to see nothing more. I would love to see QT Marshall come out on top.
This could be a lot of fun, and this could definitely open the show with a nice high energy battle royal. Those are always fun to open the show. But I think if you just look at the cards laid on the table right here, a Jungle Boy,
cards on the table.
Jungle Boy or a Christian Cage makes sense, especially to feud with Kenny Omega right now. But there's going to be a lot of fun battles. Obviously, you got Factory members and Nightmare Family members. You have Dark Order members and Team Taz members. You have HFO members, and then you got the recently number 1 ranked tag team, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. And they could go head to head with the Acclaim. They can have a feud like that. So there's a lot of potential in this match.
It could be. I mean, like they're talking a lot about this right now. I mean, Andrade was the guy you told. Like Andrade would be one of my top picks to add to this roster. Andrade would be a phenomenal addition in this matchup. Would get a nice pop. He has an ongoing issue going on with Kenny. That would be a fantastic addition and a surprise. Moose is a great. I mean, Pen always like. I love when Pen joins us because I feel like Pen always has really good insight. Cheers to you, Pen.
Yeah, cheers.
Moose. I mean,
that'd be great because we haven't had many Impact people come over and make an impact. Obviously the Stupid Brothers have been on face, but I think someone who is such a higher card person on Impact to make a debut or come in the Battle Royal and win it would make a lot of sense and make for interesting TV.
And Moose is, dude, I mean, like Moose is he's an SPD type of guy, dude. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
He's an athletic big man, and those don't grow on trees, man. But Moose that segment like this last week, man. Impact, they had something with that Don Callis, Moose, and Kenny segment, man. I like where they're going with that. Obviously, they're also leaning into Sami Callihan and some of the stuff going on with that. But I don't know, man. I feel like Andrade would be a phenomenal pick in this. But at the end, I tend to think that this is going to be Christian Cage coming out on top. I think that this is going to be Christian's kind of he's put in the work. There's been a lot of story going into this one where like he and Team Taz have been feuding a lot. And I feel like it could come down to like Christian getting the better of Team Taz and
True.
I don't know, man. I just feel like you talked about Christian with his debut, it was all about like immediately right away. He was like, he made it known he's coming for Kenny. And I feel like there was some backlash. I feel like there was some backlash from the internet wrestling community, and they kind of pumped the brakes a little bit on Christian's push. They've had him work. They've had him have some undercard matches, things like that. It would be very interesting if he won this one, and then you have Team Taz almost obsessed with trying to like cost him this opportunity against Kenny. I don't know. I feel like that could be there's an like finally getting Christian to admit like to go all in and fight Team Taz. I don't know. I think Christian has to be the favorite right now when I look at the participants.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no knock on any of the guys, but none of them stand out as a world title competitor at the moment, given their current storylines. Other than a Christian Cage, or it would be kind of fun to have if Kazarian got added to the match and him win and his new like pissed off state and try to like beat down the Elite or beat down Kenny or anything like that, and then just come up short again. Like that could be a fun little feud going. But it'll be interesting for sure. But that's a good segue. Speaking about Team Taz, like if Christian does win and Team Taz kind of hunts him down, costs him everything, and really are obsessed with them. And another question we got was like, with Ricky Starks injured, what do you see changing in Team Taz? Do you think what we saw in Dynamite Hook was the most physicals we've seen? Do you think they add another member? Comments in the chat was like Samoa Joe on Team Taz, which would be absolutely epic. But I keep going back and forth with Team Taz. Like I said on our Dynamite Download show 2 nights ago, I almost thought they were going to start to be the team jobber again when Hangman came out, and then they were going to, Big Willie Hobbs splash Cage. I was like, oh, is this just going to be like a comedy act again for Team Taz? But then finally Team Taz stood tall with Cage standing tall, and I was like, okay, that makes them some momentum. But I don't think they need to add another member. I think if Ricky Starks kind of takes the mouthpiece and takes charge, even though Taz doesn't need help on the mic, he has been kind of transitioning that, passing the mic to Ricky Starks, the star for sure. Do you think if Cage and Hobbs got the chance, they could be the powerhouse tag team that we're missing?
Oh, dude, that's a good point. I mean, that's a really good point, dude. Like, I was talking about Authors of Pain, but you're right. I mean, if Cage and Hobbs ever got that push,
Can you turn babyface and dethrone Authors of Pain down the line. But those two guys.
Can you imagine them in a tag division? Like, if you just let Powerhouse Hobbs and Cage just do what they can do, that would be that would be absolutely sick. I'm right there with you, man. That would be a great pairing. And it feels like it's like such a no-brainer. Especially with how Team Taz was struggling. It's just like unleash these guys in the tag division and let them just do damage on people.
Sure.
Be a lot of fun to watch, no doubt about it.
A fun, dominant crew like that. I mean, they need that. And I don't think we see another member. I hope they just I honestly, Hangman's, I mean, we won't talk too much about the card because we're going to do a whole preview show next week if you guys want to join us. We're most likely Saturday, but stay tuned for that. We're going to do a preview show of Double or Nothing since it's so jam-packed and we want to hear your guys' picks. We're going to send out a little pick card as well so you guys can make almost like your bingo picks of it. But I forgot, what does he say? I don't think they need another member. I just hope Cage beats Hangman to give some more momentum to Team Taz because they need it desperately. They have constantly picking up losses, and I still feel like they're kind of lost, man.
Do you feel like, as Pen talks about, right? Like, this has been something that we've been thinking about for a while.
Yeah.
That writing has been on the wall that Cage was going to break away from Team Taz. It felt like they were hinting at that a lot. But then this last week's Dynamite, it was like, oh, there's no turmoil in Team Taz at all. They look like a well-oiled machine. They just beat the piss out of Christian and Matt Sydal, and everybody looked like they were hunky-dory and all buddies again. It was just weird. It definitely was odd. They didn't look like they had any chinks in the armor, almost as if like Ricky Starks like taking a step back from the ring and being a leader and just being a guy who points those guys to go beat up people, like actually made the group more smooth and made it I don't know. It was very interesting. I think that Cage certainly could obviously have a nice babyface run in him. The guy
great.
His offense is so fun to root for and so fun to watch, but it's hard to like, as you pointed, it's hard to see where they're going clearly, because it does feel like almost like what we went through earlier on last year when the Young Bucks. And it was like they were face or heel every other week. It feels like Team Taz is it's weird. They're being presented as strong and then being presented as they're having chinks in their armor. Very, very unclear where they're going to go from here.
Right.
Could Hook emerging more and more as a guy who potentially could be a physical asset to this crew, could that soften the loss of Cage, and keep Team Taz still together, but just not have Cage in it, right? Did that happen?
It would be hard to have a Team Taz with just Powerhouse and Hook, in my opinion. It's not impossible, but
Stark's hurt.
I think if you do have Taz, like you said, Pen turning on Cage, I think the turn would require an addition / replacement.
Yeah, especially with Stark's hurt.
Yeah, who? I'm not sure, but I think you would have to.
Who better than Cage?
Who better, right? And it'd be perfect to get him Taz turn on him, and then put that baby face, like you said, man. That's intriguing stuff, sure, on it. But who knows? I don't know. That's what's great, Touch on Brandon's point right here about that. We haven't, since the Forbidden Door has been broken down. Last 2 weeks ago, we saw Moxley go head-to-head in an awesome match with the debuting of the Wild Card theme song, or Wild Thing theme song. But where do you see this going, their working relationship? When we're on the cusp, I know it's May. We still got some time, all summer, and we got some big events coming up and things like that. But where do you see this going? For me, and I'll be completely transparent. The thing that keeps me engaged in New Japan is the Bullet Club, and that's what got my interest when I didn't really know anything about New Japan. So anything to do with the Bullet Club, and sort of earlier on when I saw I've seen some of the stories being presented with the Bullet Club in North America right now with Kenny and the Bucks and the Good Brothers. The way that the Good Brothers lost their belts and some of the stuff that I saw on Impact with Don Callis consistently talking about how, man, we can't be the elite if we continue to lose, stuff like that. I feel like for me as a fan, the best thing would be to have the Bullet Club from New Japan come in and challenge the elite in AEW. That would be that would be fascinating. Now, again, there's another guy that's on my radar talking about Bullet Club. Watching Impact and seeing El Phantasmo go head to head against Josh Alexander recently. That is a guy that is. It's almost as if you blended at their peak. Now, Jack Evans is not where he once was when it comes to his ability with in the ring as smooth as he once was. But it's almost like you blended and Helico and Jack Evans together into one guy. He's got the size and lengthiness and kind of that lengthy body that Angelico has.
and kind of like the good technical submissions and smarts of an Angelico. But he's capable of doing these like incredible acrobatics and flips and things like that Jack Evans can. So a guy like me who loves TH2, he kind of like loves what those guys represent.
Right.
El Phantasmo is a young dude who's got a lot of upside, a lot of talent. So I would love to see more of those, like the Bullet Club invasion, especially with like when you consider the Elite almost having their like a stronghold on the landscape of AEW, kind of feeling like they're at the top of the world. The Kenny being sort of his ego going unchecked. It would be intriguing to me to kind of have that come in. If you're talking about the New Japan and AEW relationship, that would be where I would go. There's a lot of buzz about your boy Ryback, though.
I know.
Wow.
I'm chatting right now.
Wow.
But, I was saying, like, I can't remember. It was months ago where I pulled that out of the rear where it was like Ryback versus Cage, man, would be very intriguing. Two guys that are pretty similar build and crazy. And I've always been a feed me challenge.
You love Ryback.
It's pretty crazy. So I was always a huge fan of him. I know you weren't the biggest fan of him sometimes in WWE, but I think he'd be entertaining. Like, but it almost like there's no one you could get. It would be essentially physically bigger than Cage, really. Ryback is huge, but Cage is still like the best shape on the roster, like in the biggest guy. So if Taz were to turn and Ryback, not to say that's like a downgrade, but like who would you bring in to beat down? Obviously, you have the power of numbers. But would you try to push someone like Ryback or a powerhouse Hobbs to take down Cage? Like
that would be that would be really smart, though. I mean, like Ryback's already hated a lot on the IWC. Now you love him, and you'd be like me. Like there were a lot of stretches where like I would cheer on Big Dave Batista when he was like the biggest like bad guy, right? But like,
all right,
if you put Ryback in that role where he came in and like beat down Cage and kick Cage out of Team Taz,
true,
you'd almost be naturally playing into like the internet's hatred towards him, and like he would get a ton of heat, right? And like it would be almost like very meta. It would be very smart. Like I know a lot of people would be angry about this, right? But like that would almost be the point. Like bring Ryback in, piss people off, get them angry. Make Cage a natural baby face, like get him over, get the big guy going against the Machine. That'd be really kind of interesting. I know that a lot of people are intrigued by what like Powerhouse Hobbs, as BMAC talked about. I feel like there's no doubt Powerhouse Hobbs is the real deal. That dude, just the look, that sneer that he has, you could tell he's got that swagger, he's got that confidence. You watch him in the ring against Christian. If you put Hobbs, if you present Hobbs in the right light, this dude has it all. He checks all the boxes. The dude can absolutely do it. That said, I agree with you that there does need to be another piece to Team Taz if you're kicking Cage out, and it would be. I think that would be interesting. I think that to troll the fan base and to get people riled up, it would get people legitimately angry. How often, you know me, I love the heels. How often
you are a heel?
How often do the heels become the favorites by the fan base? The DMD. People are chomping at the bit for Brit Baker to win the women's championship, right? Like they want that, even though she's like a heel through and through. People like are cheering for her. Ryback would be one of the rare heels where people would actually hate him. That would be interesting. I don't know, man. I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think it would work in a way that obviously would. It's like not cheap heat, but it's when we were talking like the Ogogo Cody thing with the flag, like messing with the flag. That is like definitely instant heat. No matter what you do, messing with someone's flag, like you're gonna get heat, whoever you are. And so like for Ryback, the controversialness and doing that, it would be great. It would make it so interesting, so fun for sure. But Powerhouse Hobbs, man, is another one of those guys that doesn't get enough time, doesn't give enough credit, doesn't get enough opportunity as of right now. When he went to Team
guys
Taz,
that you're hoping that this show Rampage allows a guy like him
right,
to be featured more and to see that guy go in the ring. The AEW has a lot of young talent. This is a guy that qualifies as a guy that really could become a big deal if they push him right.
Yeah, you're right, and I hope so. And he's still relatively young, and his story, listening to on the AEW Unrestricted podcast, I loved it, man. And his commitment to the business and his commitment to himself and betting on himself for sure. That was some good stuff. Whew. But I have to. We are going to do a Double or Nothing preview show, but I have to talk about Lance Archer and Miro, man, because I can't stop thinking about it. I cannot stop thinking about it when it was announced online and then that promo, man. Like, what did you guys think? Thanks for the stats, Penn and Brandon. Like, we got a star on our hands. Powerhouse Hobbs, I think it's unanimous. Fan base, the IWC Dynamite download. We see potential. We see star power. And we see gold in the future for Hobbs, and I can't wait to watch him develop, watch him grow over the next years to come. So I'm happy for him, happy for his family because of that story. If you haven't listened to the Unrestricted podcast, definitely listen out for sure. But that being said, the monster versus monster. Holy cow! This is something that obviously we dream about as fans. Miro and Lance Archer going head to head. Miro, which will be his second title defense in 9 days time. Holy cow! And yes, Crayfish is the heel for sure. I'm looking online at the same time for a shirt that says heel, so I could buy it for Crayfish, so he'd wear it every day. I got him his QC Marshall bowling shirt, so he needs a shirt that says heel. He'd wear that loud and proud.
No doubt, baby.
But what do you see? This is one of the rare exceptions that I almost hope that this match ends in a DQ or a no contest because to protect both guys. So I almost hope it does that.
Well,
what do you see happening?
You were talking about this being the battle of the monsters, and
all
I could think about when you said monsters was the monster that Sheeta created, the DMD, baby. Chris, I hope you can retire soon. The DMD, baby. No, I'll talk about this topic. I'll entertain you here. Honest to God, this is for me. I'm like an outsider looking in on this one, dude, because I feel like, we're a trio. Us three here at Dynamite Download, we are a trio. You are a murder hawk maniac. Bonds has been preaching about how an angry Miro is next level. An angry Miro is as good as it gets in the wrestling world. So I'm kind of standing on the outside looking in. I feel like this is one of those matchups that like both guys are. I see it. I see why you love Murder Hawk. I see why Bonds loves Miro. I think that this is one of those weird scenarios where you and I have talked about this happen. Sometimes AEW does this where it's like, man, it feels like they booked themselves into a corner. It feels like this
it really does.
This is almost like one of Miro's first title defenses, and you're going to throw him in the ring with Lance, and it's like, I'm already seeing people talk like, oh, Lance Archer hasn't won shit in AEW. He's going to lose. And it's like, yeah, he hasn't. He hasn't won these big matches, and it doesn't feel right. It feels like we've been robbed of a Lance Archer run, a dominant run. The dude needs that. Like, I feel like, especially, we were talking about Hobbs just not long ago. Lance Archer is not a spring chicken, dude. Lance Archer is at a stage of his career where I feel like, out of respect to him as like a fan of his, this dude deserves a run for the work he's done. I would love to see him with the belt at some point. So
agree.
I'm with you. I know that you notoriously hate false finishes. You hate the roll ups. You hate DQs.
The false finishes are fine, but yes, the roll ups and the DQs like that. But this would be the only exception.
Yes, and I get it because as Brian points out, and this is something that I talked about on Twitter, I tweeted this out. JR, I just want to hear JR, his commentary on this, man. Like, this is a dream match for a guy like JR because it's like two athletic hosses just beating the piss out of each other. Like, this is going to be a JR dream match in AEW. Like, these two guys are right up his alley. I don't know, man. For me, I feel like this is a match that could, Pac's my guy, and you think about the only time, like one of the only, I think it's the only time limit. This was the TV time limit. But like, there's time limit. A time limit draw could work for these guys. I think it could also be one of those matches that spills out into the crowd, especially with a live audience in Double or Nothing, sold out arena. I feel like that could be one of those matches that spills out into the crowd.
Right.
Bonds would be, if he could be here, he'd be laughing right now. You know that the referee is going to have such a hard time containing this matchup, this madness, because they have a very hard time in general just kind of keeping things in order.
Didn't they do something where like they did a match and like it was just a no contest? Right, and then down the line, they keep continuing this feud, and then they do like a no DQ kind of match. So it's like we're getting like 2 or 3 matches out of this, like which we want, of course.
That'd be great.
So the time limit one is a tough thing to do. I think maybe you do a double count out because these guys are crazy. Then that way it can rebook them to a no DQ match, something like that. So that'd be the safest way to go. You cannot have either guy take the pinfall this early in this feud. They're too important, too valuable, and obviously Miro's not going to be losing anytime soon, and I don't want Lance Archer to. Or you just have, like, in not typical AEW fashion, like if you do have someone just beat both guys up, like I don't know, Ethan Page is already going to be taken care of with Sting and Darby, so I can't imagine them coming back out, but.
I think the best way to go, SPD, would be like as you talked about, like have it spill out into the crowd, have it be some sort of like matchup where like these guys
double count out.
They're going at each other so hard that like it's a double count out. Like, and then it leads to a falls count anywhere or a last man standing match between. Can you imagine a last man standing match between these two? Like, holy shit. Like it would add some sort of stipulation down the road because this feels like. As soon as it was announced, you and I said, like, this is a headliner. This is a headliner type of matchup. This is not like just another match and this card is ridiculous. Like, this card is absolutely ridiculous. But it blends in on a show like this, and that's not how Miro versus Murderhawk should go. Lori points it out. Like, Archer's the real deal as a human being, as a professional. We all root for him. He's an easy guy to get behind. Miro is one of those dudes who always felt like he got kind of a raw deal in WWE. Like, I always loved the guy, and it just felt like he never got recognized for what he could be. And it's so nice to see him fulfilling his destiny. It's hard to root against either one of them. So I don't know. I think that would be both. Yeah. So I'm with you. I think that this is one of those matchups that, like, no brainer. Why? Like, you preach this all the time whenever we talk Pinnacle versus Inner Circle. Why rush it? Keep it going, man. Like, don't move on to the next story yet. Like, let this be something that we see for months. Like, not just a one-off. Let it happen for a while. And that, I think that a lot of fans would be all about it. Pen brings up something that I've talked about, especially after Miro's promo on Dynamite, where he kept talking about keep the old man away from me. If that old man comes close to me, I'm going to lay him out. The way that the only way I could see this match having a clean finish would be potentially if Jake gets beat up or physically gets threatened by Miro, throws Lance Archer off and gets him distracted. That could be a way that this could go. And because there's been a lot of seeds of dissent between Lance and Jake, right? Ever like this whole thing with Sting kind of planting seeds within Lance that you've seen more and more of Lance standing on his own and not falling not falling in line to what Jake has to say all the time.
Sure.
That could be something. That there could be a story there. But I don't know if that's the way I would go with it quite yet, personally.
This is
I think
the toughest one to book, I think. The toughest one and the one you have to tread the most lightly on it for sure.
Good call.
I hope they do it right so they can protect it. This card, I can't wait to talk about.
You said this is the toughest one to book. What do you think is the easiest, most no-brainer? Like when you look at the overall card, I mean, you see Hangman Page versus Brian Cage.
This is a preview to our preview show.
Yeah, like just off the cuff, what do you think is the easiest match to predict?
I guess based on what I would want it to be, would be a go-go coming out on top for sure.
Wow.
Nothing against Cody. I'm a huge Cody mark. I'm a huge Cody mark. Okay, yes. There you go. Pen. You and Pen you guys are the heel. Well, Pen put the bet for you, so.
I was throwing
but do you still want Brit to win, or do you want the spray tan, the crayfish spray tan?
No, I was throwing that out as a softball.
Brit is definitely, I think, the home run lock finish. If I was a betting man, I would bet on there. I wouldn't have to go double or nothing because I would win my bet on the first one. But if I had to, I think a go-go, it just makes sense for him it has to be a push for him. It has to.
I threw that question out there just to troll you and mess with you a little bit because I wanted you to talk about it. But all
right, talk about her.
When you say that, but when you say that, dude, like there's a lot of like I felt like, again, not to toot our own horns, right? But like we were very early in the Brit Thunder. Like we were very early on in pushing that, right?
In January.
I feel like not to say that we're like these groundbreaking, but I feel like we saw it early on with Jade too. Like first time I saw Jade, I was like, boom, no doubt that is a star. They got
you too, B-Mac.
And then like with we see the same thing here with Ogogo. People are coming around now. You see it trending on Twitter. Everybody's rooting for Ogogo now.
Yeah.
I saw that from the minute they had him. It was like, this guy's a no-brainer. This dude is an absolute stud. He's smart. He's like well-spoken dude, international star, has a background in as an Olympic boxer, looks like $1 million. Like, how can you not think that this dude's gonna get over? And there are people out there who doubt it. I'm with you, bro. Like Cody's gonna get messed up at Double or Nothing, and it's sad to say it, but I feel like there's like the UK is coming out on top on this one. Oh, Sharonica! It's like when I mentioned the DMD, Sharonica joins the chat. I love it. Thank God that my advocate for the DMD is here. Thank you. No, man, I feel like your call with Ogogo. That image that you threw up there, bro, throw it up there one more time, man. I feel like that Anthony Ogogo image is so true, man. We three here at Dynamite Download, we're all on board with it. He's clearly emerging, and we all liked Nick Camarado too. Like that dude was a big fella, got a lot of upside. But when you talk about a guy who can talk the talk and walk the walk, this dude is the real deal. This guy is just. I think that they need to, and you've talked about recently with Miro versus Darby, how it needed to be one of those throwback to Brody Lee versus Cody when Brody just wrecked Cody in like 10 seconds. Yeah. This feels like one of those matchups where like, Cody's going to get some offense in on Ogogo, and he might test Ogogo a little bit more than what we've seen to this point. But I don't think that this should be one of those matches that puts Ogogo in real peril. I think that Ogogo should convincingly win this match.
Agree. Period. I mean, we're going to keep the Double or Nothing in depth, but this is definitely my pick for that for sure. And I think he is every bit of a star. on there. And who do you see?
I love the chat right now. Everybody wants to see Brit lose now because they want the spray tan.
That's right.
I promise. I'll even have the Matt Jackson tier for you guys. That'll be great. The brown tier.
We're gonna do a live stream spray tan if Brit loses. And okay, so let's just play this. Let's play this out. If Brit Baker does lose, why and how, and then what's next?
Oh man.
Hopefully we don't need this to ever happen, but how and why, and then what next?
I don't know if they can afford to have Brit lose. I don't know, because I mean that changes things, because it's like the main reason why I say that is not just because I'm a DMD fanboy.
Right.
It's because the way that Hikaru Shida has been presented.
True.
It feels like that would be a real pivot. Like, all right, like if that's gonna happen, then Shida needs to get back into being week in, week out on the show, because I'm tired of the women's champion not being on the show. That's a big reason why I want Brit to win so badly. Is she's on every show. She's such a perfect showcase for and a star to help get that division to the next level that it needs to be. If she loses, and this is like me saying if AEW signs CM Punk, but if Brit Baker loses, I think it has to be because of
Thunder.
The thorn in her side. Yes, that's the only thing that I could think of is maybe. But the more I think about that happening, the more sad I get, and I'm going to drink my beer and just sit here and be sad thinking about Britt Baker potentially losing. There's no way, man. I can't see it happening. All the stuff that's been going on.
There's no one better in the division and perfect than for her, period. Like, it would suck the wind out of the sail, because it would be hard to recoup that. And then you're just going to work your way back up the rankings again to re-challenge? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, even if someone were to come in and curb stomp Brit. So
Chris is trolling me right now, but I mean, let's be real. Ever since Britt Baker like addressed the ranking system in AEW, her record in AEW is on point, right? I mean, Britt Baker's been winning match, and maybe it's because people aren't seeing it, but Britt Baker has been winning match after match after match after match. To me, like she's gotten so much better in the ring since when she first debuted, and there's no question why she won the most improved wrestler in wrestling based off PWI. I just think that she's put in the work. And for people who are criticizing Britt Baker, she's 10-1. She's 10-1 based off of the most recent rankings. That's more matches. You know, everyone like Hikaru Shida is 3-0. So Shida's been our champ has been on TV 3 times, really. Yeah. And that's why I feel like you and I are both in lockstep in this. Even though we both respect Shida, even though we both think that she deserves to have a role in this division in some way, shape, or form. Right now, you gotta put the belt on the DMD, brother. You gotta put the belt on the DMD.
For sure. And it'll be nice to, like, obviously Shida hasn't been on TV much at all. And so obviously that's a smooth transition for her. She won't be featured on TV much at all again. But maybe I think when someone is kind of in a lockstep or something, you can put add a tag partner, add some, pizzazz to that. But once Shida loses, now what? Like, you need to have some kind of instant feud. You like Darby. You saw Darby lose and then instantly transition. Perfect. Right. Perfect. There is nothing on the cards for Shida. Like, I don't know what you do with her next. Like, it is what it is, and she was what she was, like, for the division, and props to her. But being so lackluster and barely featured, like, she's so good in the ring. It's a shame the way it's going to end. But
I agree.
It needs to happen. It needs to end. I hope she gets beat so bad she's off TV for a little bit, then comes back and has some nice feud, or I don't know, with somebody.
I agree, because there's no natural transition for Shida, and the reason why is because she hasn't been on TV, man. She hasn't really had even this feud. This is what bums me out, right? It's like Brit Baker winning the AEW Women's Championship is such a huge moment in the landscape of AEW, and Shida losing the title is equally just as big of a moment. Like, she's been the champ they're gonna celebrate being the champion for a full calendar year. Like, it just feels like they've and AEW does an awesome job building stories, but man, it feels like they dropped the ball on the build for this one, because this could have been presented as like an epic match of like the most dominant champion in AEW history, going against the face of the division, the greatest trash talker, all of that stuff. It could have been one of these epic builds, and it almost feels like it's been an afterthought a little bit, and that is a bit of a bummer heading into Double or Nothing. Although I feel like that bummer will get over, like it'll be like a Band-Aid getting ripped off once Britt wins. That's the thing. Britt has so many stories ahead of her that are fascinating and interesting to see. How Britt reacts to a Jade Cargill, how Britt reacts to a Nyla Rose. We've seen Shida and Nyla Rose already.
Yeah,
you see Britt and a Nyla Rose. You see Britt and a Jade. How that heel and that humorous side of Britt, how she reacts to a challenge like that.
Right.
That blood feud with Thunder Rosa, the best feud, my favorite feud in all of professional wrestling. Period. Thunder Rosa versus Brit Baker. You have that. You see Britt as a heel champion. You know how many people out there want to see Ty Conti in that title picture still? 12-3, your number 3 overall contender. Somebody who feels like she's just on the cusp of getting over the hump. Having Britt go against Ty, seeing that, Anna Jay coming back. Again, a heel champion in Britt Baker. You look at the landscape of AEW's women's division. You have Red Velvet, who has quickly emerged and proven herself as somebody that we see as a believable championship contender, a babyface. All these babyface contenders going against Britt. Even Jade is kind of a heel, but I feel like she's just more of a badass who does her own thing, doesn't really care what people if they like her or not. And I feel like the more Jade gets an opportunity to show herself, the more people are going to like her and respond to her in a positive way. Just because she's got that it factor, she's got that natural charisma to her. She just oozes star power.
Mm-hmm.
Britt as a heel champion, I feel like immediately pours gasoline on the fire and just makes the women's division so much more fascinating, so much more interesting, and has a champion who you could put out there, whether it's Dynamite, Dark, Elevation, Rampage, New York Times, whatever you want to put her wherever. CNN, whatever you want. Britt represents it so well. So I'm there. I think that it just makes way too much sense not to have that happen. And there's all this conversation too. I mean, you and I talk about like Thunder Rosa and that feud with Britt. Thunder and her role with NWA. NWA has given a lot to AEW. A lot. We just talked about Serena Deeb, man. I'm a fanboy of hers. I think that she's awesome. Phenomenal. It would be kind of cool to see AEW give back to NWA a little bit and throw them a bone and let Britt Baker get involved in a Thunder Rosa match on NWA. Have her do something. I just feel like that would be really a good move on AEW's part, and would only add more fuel to the fire of Britt versus Thunder, which is not going away at any time soon. Can you imagine Britt versus Thunder for the belt?
No, I could. I mean, that'd be outstanding. And you know what? I feel like, Britt's run first. I want to know who are like the first 3 baby faces that you see Britt going through. Like, I want to know that first. And then what I feel like I could see this happening, which we can already kind of feel it from the crowds being there, that Brit's run, she's going to turn babyface halfway through. You know, I almost it's going to be so good at heel, they're going to start loving her like they love Jericho, and it's just going to be a natural transition to a babyface because it's almost going to be a forced transition because the fans are going to be so far behind her. At first, it'll be some boos and some all that, but you mentioned Red Velvet. She's an easy babyface to talk about and take Conti again. But really, what are some other than Statlander, because she's a main event quality star, or top of the babyface division? Who are some more instant feuds that Brit can kind of put down more acceptable?
I got you. Like
that's tough. Like obviously we want to see Statlander and Jade. We want to see Statlander and Brit. We want to see Jade and Brit, but like build to it. Like the same thing with Miro. Have Miro defend the titles versus against a Dante Martin, a Jungle Boy, a Trent, things like that. Like, and then eventually lead him up to a Lance Archer, lead him up to a
I get what you're saying.
MJF, or something like that. So,
well, I'll name a couple.
No knock on anyone, not knock on anyone being A-lister, B-lister, C-lister, but thank you for that. We got Diamante, we got Big Swole, things like that.
So I'll name a couple names, right? Yeah. I think that you know me. I love Maddie Rinkowski. I think that Maddie Rinkowski's got a lot of potential. We've already seen Brit and Maddie interact in the past when the Thunder feud was getting hot. Maddie would be an interesting play. I think that Big Swole, that feud that Swole had with Brit in the past,
right?
We haven't seen a lot of Swole on Dynamite. Swole versus Brit would be interesting. Swole is strong, dude. Swole has that power that would immediately make her a legitimate challenge to Brit without being someone who you feel like if she loses to Brit would ruin a big push for her. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be different if you had Statlander go up against Brit and lose than Swole. And that's not a slam on Swole. I feel like if Swole had a chance against Brit, it would be an actual benefit to Swole because it gets her back on TV, gets her fresh, gets people buzzing about her again. That would be an interesting matchup. Obviously, the name that I think Ty Conti is a future, but I think that would be somebody who would get hurt if she lost too soon. I talked to you about this already. I think Abaddon would be a fascinating
matchup. Would be for sure.
I think that Abaddon would be a fascinating matchup against Brit Baker, somebody who would like immediately put Brit like kind of on her heels a little bit. I love that. I think that they're how different their characters are, with Brit being this like overly confident, really like above it all, like kind of heel against somebody like Abaddon who is just crazy. And I feel like that would be an interesting one. And then I'll throw one more name out that I know that Red Velvet is always in the picture, but I'll throw another name out. I think Layla Hirsch would be a fun matchup against Brit.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that too. Yeah.
Layla,
Penn, same time.
Legit Layla would be somebody who, like, again, you throw Brit in the ring with Layla, immediately you get to see Brit. Brit gets a lot of credit for her promo work, but does not get appreciated for what she can do in the ring. You throw her in the ring with a woman like Layla Hirsch, they're going to be, the suplexes are going to be going, the physicality is going to be intense. I think that Layla versus Brit would be a lot of fun. So there's a lot of goods. That's the thing. You put a heel champion like Brit who can immediately make any matchup fun.
True.
Just the way she talks and her facial expressions, it gives a lot of characters an opportunity. I think there's a lot of to be excited about in the women's division post Double or Nothing.
You're absolutely correct, man. It's gonna skyrocket it to the moon for sure. Once Brit gets the gold, and then we have essentially an all heel champs, which is pretty interesting. It's a lot of fun to have baby faces chase the heel. It is a lot of fun both ways, but for a baby face to chase the heel is a lot of fun.
I feel like that's the money right there, man. Having the baby faces chase the heels, that's the money. Do you see, like we talked about this, The only way that I think they can mix it up is if Kingston and Mox come out on top against the Bucks. But the Bucks
I could see that happening, honestly, though.
I agree.
Okay, if I could totally see that happening, which we won't go too in deep about that. But as we are, yes, props, Brandon. Layla Hirsch is awesome. So she's improving and great to the women's division. Love that for sure. If Kingston and Mox don't win, given the current circumstances of the division, who do you see winning the Bucks?
Well, I mean, there are two names that immediately jump out, right? Like I think
that are available to feud with them.
Yeah, I think Santana and Ortiz. I've been wanting those two guys to get a title run for a long time.
We were there when we saw Young Bucks versus PNP.
I feel like those guys are so. Yeah, you were. Thank you. I feel like that's long overdue. And so the two names that jump out to me right away, FTR and Santana Ortiz. I think it would almost be better if Santana,
guys, baby.
And I'm an FTR fanboy, but I think it would almost be better storyline wise if Santana Ortiz won, and it only pissed off FTR that much more because FTR, you could tell Dax he might be drinking a couple of these like we are, but he's been spouting off on social media a lot about how like ridiculous it is that people are they still haven't gotten their rematch, and these other teams are jumping ahead of them.
Dax, you should mention it on Twitter. Say, hey man, when are you guys going to use your rematch clause against the Danglies?
Oh, I'm sure he hears that a lot, and I feel like if Santana and Ortiz somehow got the titles, it would only like we've been talking about FTR versus Santana Ortiz since this Pinnacle and Inner Circle feud started. I think that would just piss off FTR that much more. And then if you have FTR versus Santana Ortiz for the belts, that would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun. Those two teams having the Pinnacle and Inner Circle feud going. And then
that's the main event stuff.
Add the belts to that scenario. That's some money, dude. That is some major money in a feud right there. So that would be my first. Like, I feel like those two teams need it. I don't know. That's my two. Those are my two that immediately jump out. I was impressed by the Varsity Blondes this last week, but
they did great, man.
I mean, and Brian Pillman Jr. This was the best week. This was the best Brian Pillman Jr. I've seen. Right. I mean, his promo work was absolutely incredible this last week on Dynamite. So,
right. Man, I really don't know who could dethrone them right now with the heat they're going, other than some main eventers like Mox and Kingston.
I think Mox and Kingston. I do think that's going to be. I think there are going to be two title changes at Double or Nothing. I think Britt's going to beat Sheeta, and I think that Mox and Kingston are going to win. Even though
spoiler alert to our preview show,
the Bucks are doing some amazing work, man, and I go back and forth. I'm pretty lockstep that Britt's going to win. But
yeah,
the Bucks one, I go back and forth every day because I feel like the Bucks are doing the best work that I've seen them do in AEW right now. Like their run is fantastic. But I think that like Mox and Kingston could be some good transitional champions. If that's like, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a bad thing to say, but I feel like they could be some good transitional champions.
Yeah, you make a valid point, and I think it would make sense. Maybe that you'll still continue a feud with Elite, but maybe it can finally segue to done with Kenny Omega, saga, which is nothing bad about it. It's absolute gold and was amazing stuff. But I can't wait.
If they lose, where do they go? Where do Kingston and Moxley go?
That's true. Right?
I mean, it feels like that story.
I mean, if Good Brothers cost them the match, then they could feud with Good Brothers, which would, it would work. But I just can't stand the Good Brothers at all, man. But the Good Brothers could have a dangly, the dangly cost them the match or whatever, and then they could feud with them.
This is a good question by Brian.
You're so pissed. Yeah. That's tough. Oh, in 2021, I would say under, man. Sadly, if I was booking, I would say tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would say have a match elevation the belt away immediately.
I think that like Santana Ortiz versus FTR, that is like that's the most intriguing. It's funny, we had an interaction with Sammy on Twitter this week, and I was talking about how MJF versus Sammy would be a dream match out of all the matchups that we could do out of the Pinnacle and Inner Circle, and he was like, nope, I don't want any part of that match, which I thought was interesting. I wish MJF was tagged in that conversation because I feel like MJF should have jumped in on that and been like, huh.
You should. Why don't you tag him and say, you know what?
Sammy's scared of me. I thought about it. I was like, MJF, I was going to ask him, like, what's harder for you to admit that you agree with Sammy or that you want to fight Sammy? Which one would be harder for him though? Like that he still has beef with Sammy, or that he and Sammy are in agreement on something? But
you should.
FTR versus Santana
Rekindle
that is the one match as a tag team fanboy, dude. I want to see those guys go at it, and I love the gang warfare, but I wanted to see that tag match. I just want to see those two veteran tag teams go head to head.
For sure. No, I completely agree. That is the money marquee match for sure. And I think you should definitely troll Dax about the rematch and troll Sammy and MJF together too. Stir that pot. And I said it when they were all months ago, how I predicted I wanted Sammy when he was gone and essentially kicked out of the Inner Circle, how he'll come back, cost Chris Jericho and MJF, and then ultimately feud with MJF and cost MJF his first true loss on his record. That would be a huge push for that with Sammy. And but we'll end on stay tuned. We're gonna end on one more fan question. So send us a final question as we ride off in the sunset, the beautiful weekend. But we're gonna do a Double or Nothing full preview show. We're gonna send out essentially a pick'em card. We want you to make your picks. So you watch our show as well. Most likely it's going to be Saturday, but we're going to work on logistics for our live preview show. SPD, a nice cool thing.
Your idea, I love it. We're going to do a little competition for all you who are joining us. We're going to do a little competition. Whoever wins and gets the most picks correct for Double or Nothing is going to get a little Dynamite download fan pack. And you're gonna get some Dynamite download swag. I know Sharonica, you've been wanting to represent us, so maybe you've been week after week. You've been at Daly's place, so I feel like you have the leg up, Sharonica out there. You should be the favorite. But whoever is gonna get the most picks right, you're gonna get some Dynamite download swag sent your way. So make sure you join us with that pre-show of the Double or Nothing. We're going to do that. We're going to do a little hype show for that. We'll talk about our picks. Maybe you'll just go straight chalk with SPD. Maybe you go straight chalk with Crayfish. Bonds will probably be feeling right as rain for that by then. So we'll talk to him, and you'll get all of our picks here at Dynamite Download, and we'll hear yours, and we'll get into who wins. That'll be a lot of fun to talk about that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So stay tuned. We will post that on our social media when we're going to do the preview show. We got to talk to Bonds to get a timing for that. Obviously, we're going to be kind of like lost little lambs. I mean, obviously we'll have Dark and Elevation, but like no Dynamite on Wednesday, nothing on Thursday, but we go into Memorial Day weekend with an absolutely jam-packed late night Dynamite Friday night. And then the pay-per-view on Sunday. Then most people are off on there. But, this is here you go, Pen. Our final question of the night. Love it. Thank you so much for submitting all your questions on Twitter and here in the live stream. We appreciate you guys spending your Friday night with us. But number one moment in 2021 so far in AEW that made you laugh the most. Oh my gosh. This is very tough, man. I mean, for like shocking moments, I was there when I watched the Kenny Omega Ray Phoenix match. That was just insane match, like for just like wow factor moments. Thank you, Lori, so much. We love you. Thank you. But for I I think any one of Chris Jericho's promos, man, anytime Jericho does a promo, I literally laugh out loud. I am like, a lot of times you can smile and smirk.
You are a Jericho slappy. You love Jericho.
There's like every week it's so hard because we're almost halfway through this year. The bubbly bath was pretty great. It was more of like a yes, like I was laughing at the flopping going on in there. But some of Jericho's promos the past month or so had me laughing out loud. And one that had me like literally stand up and just fist pumping is the return when they in the back locker room where they open the door and it's like just there. And then Hager's at the other door. We got to go. Like, that's where I was just like cheering.
That was
like,
great.
Yes. I was so excited.
MJF's
that was one of the most exciting.
Yes, that's a good
by
point.
By far,
MJF
that was one of my most exciting moments.
We got to go. Sure. We got to go.
Yep.
That was great. That's a really good call by you. I think the recency bias, I think that like I was really cracking up at the Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega segment. I literally was laughing out loud with Kenny trolling him a little bit. And Orange Cassidy's just deadpan, the slowest ripping of the paper of humanly possible. Yep. That was really funny. I'll be honest with you. I go back to this still. I don't know if it's funny or not, but it still gets me every time. Santana, the beating, you go back to that beating with like MJF getting his head, the swirly in the toilet, all that stuff. Santana standing over Dax. It wasn't. I don't know if it wasn't funny per se, but to me, right. I love this line. Look at you now, belly up. I just like that. To me, it just got me crack. I still crack up to that.
Right.
I don't know. That was like badass, but the way it was delivered was just so freaking good, man. Like it just made my like I still will. That's my memory of AEW this year that I will continue to laugh. I love that. I absolutely love the delivery of that. I absolutely thought that was fantastic.
That's a funny one, Penn. Yeah, the promos by Kenny Omega and the Elite 2 are just being
69 me done.
Yes.
Well, even Kenny SPD. I know you don't watch Impact, but Don and Kenny had an interview segment with Moose, and Don and Kenny were talking about like, oh yeah, we like big guys, we like big boys, man. We like those, we like big boys, don't we? It was just like leaning super into like the funny gay but it was just like it was really funny the way that they delivered it. Those lines are really Kenny's doing some funny stuff right now.
It's so different than what we're used to seeing like out of him early on, and like he's really loose lips and really they're all pushing the envelope really far. But that back to that backstage segment of the Inner Circle, I think that was the one I've rewatched the most. I don't really rewatch the shows that much or clips that much, but that one I kept rewatching, and every time was like goosebumps, and it was just like so great because I'm such a huge Inner Circle mark, and these two feuds are absolutely pure gold. So I absolutely love that so much.
Yes.
So that one really made me laugh. It made me cheer. Made me excited. It gave me chills. So like it was hit on every aspect, and loved it for sure. But that being said, I'm gonna go put on my Inner Circle shirt. I'm gonna change up, put on my Inner Circle shirt because why not, man? But you guys stay tuned. Thank you so much for us for Friday Night Flights and Fights. Can't wait to hear your predictions for Double or Nothing. We can't really. I mean, the card's pretty much set, but things could change on Dynamite. Some last minute changes. So we should Saturday morning send out a match card prediction that you guys can fill out. You can DM us. We'll put them on our show later that night, Saturday. And then the winner afterwards, we'll send you a little goodie bag, and we can't wait to talk to you about it. Send us your predictions. We'll get some good predictions going, and we'll see who wins. And essentially the deciding factor, which is like the battle royale, that could be if everyone gets the exact one, the deciding factor could be the battle royale on it as well. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining us, Friday Night Flights. We love y'all. We back. Sure, we wish we could be down there at Double or Nothing. Sadly, I'm still on a work assignment out of town, but we'll be soon. Still working on figuring out what we can do for maybe a Dynamite trip, or you notice the next pay-per-view is going to be in St. Louis, Midwest represent. So that could be a nice little road trip to go out to St. Louis. It's great to see that AEW is traveling again, but cheers to the weekend. Crayfish, any last words?
This time next week, I'm going to have my potential spray tan place scouted out. So I hope that I don't.
I hope not.
I hope I don't have to have it. Thank you guys so much for joining us, man. I love interacting with the fans out there. This is so much fun. I love it. That's all I got to say, man. This was great. Great way to go into the weekend. This is a good way to end it.
Yep. Dynamite Download won't have a show on Wednesday, but we might do a special edition, but stay tuned.
Sing along with us, guys. Mitch is in the background. Come on, Mitch. This song is such a perfect.